Hello everyone, good morning or good afternoon wherever you are. I hope you're all well. I just thought I'd pop by and create another snippet video for my YouTube channel. So I'd just like to say welcome to all my new subscribers and welcome to my long time followers. So I hope you're all very well. So I thought I'd pop by and do a little snippet video. My snippet videos are about projects that are more pared back, projects that are nice and simple, projects if you're short on time. The projects will be quicker for you when you make them because obviously you're not waffling like I am and talking to the phone. So obviously the projects, you will make them nice and quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm starting with a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, which is 300 GSM and it's 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. This is a size card that I really love creating. Now, the reason I do these videos is as a stamp designer, I've been designing now for 6 years, and it's always been my aim to offer inspiration, especially when you're spending your hard-earned cash and supporting me by buying my designs, which I truly appreciate. In fact, I wouldn't be here without you. So in return, I like to offer some inspiration with the designs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of my new ones. I'm going to use Fallen Leaves, and it's stamp set 806, which is lovely, Tracy, because we've got all that glare on there. But on here, we've got this leaf that looks wonderful in ultra thick. We've got like these little foliage and a little flower stamp, so you can create meadow stamping. We've got a holly leaf if you want to do your seasonal makes, but I've also got all these that are nothing to do with seasonal. So I like to pack as much in as possible into the stamp sets. Right, so let's just place that back because that's going to irritate me, because you'll have to bear with me because there's so much stuff on my desk. I haven't tidied away because, as normal, I'm working on deadlines, and it's deadline city here. There's stuff everywhere. Right, what I'm going to do is take a piece of low tack tape. So let's just make sure. Right, so I'm going to take my low tack tape. Now I want it to be low tack. I don't want it to stick on my card too much and rip it. So I'm just going to apply it to my skin just to take away some of that tackiness. And what I'm going to do, as I'm not thinking about it too much, I think around about there, I'm just looking at it and thinking, where do I want the low tack tape? So I'm just placing that low tack tape as we go. I will lift it up and move it so that I am able to move that card. Now, I haven't got a low tack tape that's nice and thick. I've only got my usual low tack tape. So it isn't a wide low tack tape. If you've got a wide low tack tape, then great. If you haven't, use a piece of copier paper and just mask it off, or use your post-it notes and mask it off. So I'm just masking off an area. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift this up so you can actually see what I'm doing. You can see, if I just tilt that, you can see I've got this depth here. I'm just going to check whether I want another one. Do I want another one? No, I think we'll leave it at 2. See, a project's supposed to be simple, Tracy, so stop dithering. Right, so I'm just lifting this up just so that you can see the depth of that. So there we go, just so you can see the depth of that. It doesn't matter what depth. At the end of the day, you might be making something that's just similar. It doesn't have to be bang on the same. Right, what we do need is some copier paper. Let's grab some copier paper, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to get in too much of a mess. So a piece of copier paper I always have on one side. Right, what I've got is I've got some of my VersaFine Clair inks. I've got Verdant, I've got Shady Lane, and I've got Warm Breeze. So I'm going to let's start with the lightest colour first. Just a bit of a habit that I get into is just using the lightest colour first. So let me just bring that in. And I'm just going to, as you can see, I've just stamped half of this foliage stamp. Did I show you the foliage stamp? Just so you can see there it is. I'm using this stamp here. And I did this foliage stamp because I wanted you to be able to mix it with your flowers. So if you wanted it upright like that and then just add a flower stem with it, it works beautifully. But also wanted to do it so that you can use part of the stamp as well. Now, if you want to, and you want to be really quick and random, you can just use the stamp off the acrylic block and use it like that. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just using an acrylic block, just finding it a little bit easier. So I've got this verdant ink. So I've stamped it here. And then what I'm going to do is stamp again on the bottom layer. Like so. Now I've got that masking tape on there, so that means that that area will have an open area when I remove the masking tape, which is exactly what I want. So we've got this lovely green on here, and it's lighter on, that's where it's lighter, that's the low tack tape. Let's just rub some of that off. Let me just have a look at this. Do you know, I have, yeah. I thought, have I put the lid on the wrong one? No, I haven't. I do worry about myself at times. So what I'm going to do this time is just ink a little bit, just a little bit of the foliage here. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more just on there. So you're just adding, let's just grab a piece of kitchen roll. You're just adding a little bit of stamping. Just adding extra. You shouldn't really, you should dab your stamp. Don't rub your stamp with kitchen roll, because all you end up with is bits from the kitchen roll on your stamp, which you don't want. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more. I'm just adding a little bit more stamping with this foliage stamp. Okay, so I'm just going to lift this up so you can see. So what I've got is, I've got this low tack tape here, and I've got a little bit of stamping just below. So let me just dab that moisture. Right, so let's remove that one. Just place that back. And what I've got, no idea whether I've placed that back right, but there you go. On this stamp set, there's also some like little grassies, little twiddly bits that I just love. So I'm going to use that. We've got this little grass stamp here. So obviously I only need an A7 acrylic block. And what you shouldn't have is all your stamps out all over the place like Tracy's got. But that's what happens when you end up doing half a dozen projects at the same time. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use Shady Lane, just for a little bit more darkness to the design. And I'm just going to make sure that ink isn't going to go over. So where's my copier paper? Just to make sure it doesn't go on the bottom area just yet. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that leaf stamp. Just inking with the Shady Lane. Do you know, that word would not come out then. It's like, what am I stamping with? Shady Lane. So I'm just adding some of the foliage just with the Shady Lane. And obviously it'll look different once you remove your low tack tape. And you can do your first generation, you can also do second generation and third generation if you want it to have some depth. Right, what I'm going to do then is take the little leaf stamp again, and we're going to add some, let me just place that down, we're going to add some just in the bottom area as well. First generation, second generation. So take that up again, use your Shady Lane, first generation, and you can add your second generation, just so that you've got those. And then on the same stamp set, I've got a little more twiddly bits that I love. Let's just take these. So I've got like a little twiddly bit here, little twiddly. What I like about these little twiddly bits, it just adds to the foliage. So what I'm going to do with that, I'm going to use Warm Breeze just to add a turquoise element to the design. And I can just lift this up because I've removed the low tack tape. Just add a little bit of these twiddly bits. First generation, second generation, if you wish. You can even add third generation because the Warm Breeze is quite a strong colour. So you can add the first, the second and the third generation with that turquoise. So the Warm Breeze, and I'm just adding these little twiddly bits. So first generation, second generation, third generation, and we'll just repeat that. And when you're stamping like this, move your stamps so that you've got it in different directions and so that you're using different parts of the stamp. I'm just putting my lid on each time just so that I don't get in a mess, because when you're messing with the stamps, you do obviously pick up the ink. Right, what I'm going to do then is just have a look. I've got a little flower on here. And you see this little diddy, I'm going to put it over the white, little diddy flower over there. Or don't, no, I don't, do you know, this is what I'm like all the time. It isn't that one I want. It's this little twiddly one that I want. And I'm just going to use that light colour again, the verdant. And I'm just going to add, let's move that lid out of the way. Just going to add some of the verdant stamping again. I love the brightness, the lightness, the different heights of the foliage, so it works quite nicely. So it's entirely up to you where you place everything. And again, you can do first generation and you can do second generation if you wish. Just have a look at your arrangement and see which you prefer. So again, just add a little bit. I'm adding some at the bottom, just echoing a little bit what's above the low tack tape. Changing the height of the flower just so that it looks a little bit different each time. And you can use that first generation, second and third generation if you wish. Right, let's place this back. So we've done nothing complicated, we've just enjoyed just a little bit of stamping. So what I'm going to do now, just remove the low tack tape. And I tend to just sort of pull away from me, like so. But it's quite low tack anyway because I added it to my skin. Now don't go and touch that low tack tape, fold it over on itself so then you don't get that all over your fingers. So what you can see is we've then got this beautiful piece. Now if you wanted it to leave it like that, you could. And then you could add one of the mice if you wanted just in here. It's entirely up to you. But I'm just going for a different project anyway. Right. What I want to do then is just take a piece of cardstock. As you can see, I won't waste anything. And what I want to do is grab my stamp, and what I'm going to use is my Stag. So I'm using the Stag stamp, which I absolutely adore. I adore the detail in this stamp. It's a really good size. So I'm using this stag image here, but there's lots of different images on there. So we're going to use the big stag at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is make sure I grab the right ink, which is black, and we're just going to ink the stag, and we're just going to stamp that. And just, there we go. And we're just going to give that a stamp. Now, luckily, oh, I'll pick this stamp up again. Luckily, I've got this already cut out so that you don't have to wait for me to cut it out, just so that that's a little bit of a shorter video for you, just in case you haven't got a lot of time and you just want to create. So let's move that white because we don't want that to touch our card. Just allow that ink just to sit in there, and it's the stag that I actually want. But just look at that front image. Absolutely adore that. Right, and what we've got is we've cut out the stag image from here, just so that you can see that. You don't have to use all the collage elements if you don't wish. Right, so what I'm thinking is that my stag will then, when I've coloured it, will go here, and then I can add the sentiment here. So what I'm going to do is colour this stag. Oh, I've got the right one. Water is often a good thing. Now I've got the distress pencils, and the reason I've got the distress pencils is for one reason only, is because I wanted them because they're in the distress palette, and as you know, I use a lot of distress products, so they were perfect for the palettes that I often use. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Candied Apple and Crackling Campfire. And Tracy spends longer getting into the packaging than she does anything else. So Crackling Campfire, which is like a reddy orange. I tend to press them down and then it just lifts that up. Oh, you know, how long can one person spend on the packaging? And this is why your card is a little bit quicker than mine. And then I want a proper orange. Let me just see. So, just press, not, that one. So I want a proper orange. What colour's that one there? Let me have a look. What colour are you? Bordeaux, that's a reddy colour. Do you like our check first? Right, so I've got these colours. I have Spiced Marmalade, Candied Apple and Crackling Campfire. And if you look at the bottom, I've got them in that range of colours, light, medium, dark. And I'm not going to do anything super complicated. It's a snippet video. It's not about taking hours and hours. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to layer the lightest colour just on my project. So I'm just going down one edge with the lightest colour. Oh, got an itch. So I'm just applying the lightest colour first. So we've got Spiced Marmalade. I'm just adding that colour. Now if you're using anything that's reactive with water, you need to make sure you've got the correct cardstock that will allow you to blend and allow you to move that pigment. If your cardstock doesn't, you know, isn't the correct cardstock and it won't allow the movement, then you've got the wrong cardstock. You need to make sure that this is Pink Frog Super Smooth. It's not a watercolour card, but Pink Frog does, it will take the moisture. So what I'm going to do is just pick up a little bit of that pigment as well, just from the pencil. Now these are woodless, so I can do this with these without it reacting and affecting the wood because they're woodless. So what I'm going to do is just take, so I've got pigment already on there, and I'm just going to take some water and just blend that out. I'm going to pick up some of the colour, because what I'm doing is I'm just going to do a quick colouring method. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just literally at the moment just giving it a wash, not as in with soap and water, but a wash of colour. And what that means is just a very diluted layer of colour. So what I call this is a flat layer of colour. It's got no oomph to it as far as I'm concerned. What I'm just going to do is just pick up some more of that pigment and just blend that out. So we've got the lightest colour, and you can see I've still added layers of that lightest colour, and I'm just dragging that out of that lightest colour. Okay, so pick up a little bit of the pigment, which will just add to the depth of that colour. You can colour quickly, but what I will say is if you want a real quality image coloured beautifully, it's all about adding the layers. It's not about rushing the process. So you just need to be aware of that. You're not going to get a beautiful finished project if you rush everything. If everything's about, it's got to take 5 minutes. Obviously this is a snippet video and it's about simple ideas. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go to Crackling Campfire, pick up my water, and I'm just going to pick this pigment directly from the pencil, and I'm going to add some of that Crackling Campfire just around. So I'm going to keep adding that water and just picking that up. Yes, I am using a water brush, but my water brush hasn't got any water in. Sometimes I do have one water brush that hasn't got any water in because I haven't filled it up, but I still use it because I like the nib on the water brush. So I'm just picked up this darker pigment just to add a darker layer of colour. And what I'm doing is I'm just placing that down, the darker colour, just around the edges, but I'm not totally covering the first colour that we used. So I'm not totally covering that first colour that we used. There's no point doing that, because if you completely cover the first layer of colour that you've done, all you're going to do is you're not going to get any depth. So I'm picking that pigment up and just picking, there we go, just adding some of that darker layer of colour, and more sort of a sketchy type of colouring. So what I'm going to do is now rinse my brush, because I want to go back to the lightest colour. Well, if I leave the pigment in from the medium colour, it's not going to go back to that light colour. So I'm going to go back then to this spiced marmalade, pick up that spiced marmalade, and I'm just going to blend those two colours, the edges of those two colours together, and blend them out. Just blend the edges of those out. So I'm not doing anything complicated, no rocket science work. So just blend that out. So it's a bit of a scribble type of colouring. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to pick up the candied apple, which is a bit darker. And what I'm going to do is with the candied apple, pick up plenty of that pigment, and I'm just going to go around the edges just to give that depth of colour. It is worth just taking your time with this last layer, just to give a little bit of depth to that project. Now, until this dries, obviously you've seen me use quite a bit of moisture. Until the moisture in that card until it's completely dry, it's very difficult to add any white touches with a white pen, because they just won't take, because the gel pen's trying to draw over a soaking wet surface, and it won't work. And sometimes it's nice just to look at your project just through a camera lens. Sometimes just take a picture and just look at it through your camera lens. You're not going to believe this, but I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I do beg your pardon. I don't know what it is about recording a video, but Tracy always sneezes, and I don't edit it out. It's warts and all videos with Tracy. But yes, I always seem to sneeze. So I'm just taking my time just to add a little bit more depth. So really, in the whole of your card, this is the part that takes the longest. Nothing else, just this. This takes the longest part. It doesn't have to. If you want it to look quite sketchy, you don't have to take a super long time just to do the. There we go. So I'm just going around and then what I'm going to do is I need to really give that a rinse, just so that I haven't got that red on there. There we go. And I'm just going to pick up a little tiny bit of the orange, and I'm just going to blend the edges of that red, just so that we haven't got any harsh edges. There we go. Just so that you've got that brightness. And then I've got a little bit of colour, just to take that out. Take the excess off, and then bring a little bit more, just so that you leave a little bit of white in the centre, just to give that highlight and a bit of life. Obviously, you could add white highlights, but I can't do that when it's soaking wet. Right. I'm just going to place these back because I'm a pain. It drives me mad if I've got the pencils lying around in the wrong place. Let's just put these back. Place them back. So hopefully I've placed them in the right tin. Yes, we have. Right. And what we've got then is we've got this. Let's just clean our area. We've got this then, because we've stamped in the greens and turquoise in the background, this then really pops. It pops beautifully. So it really does work quite nicely, which I absolutely love. So what we could also do is you can take your Posca pen if you want, and you can draw a line. I think I'm going to go a little bit finer, just so it's not overpowering. And what I'm going to do is just do a squiggly line. Don't think about it, just do a squiggly line just across the edges of where that area that we masked off. Just add a little bit of a wiggly line, just to give it a little bit of definition. And then we can add this to our design, because what I'm thinking is I can add a little touch then of a word here. So I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to that. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of white cotton. I don't want to add too much darkness, so I don't want to add sort of black cotton, because I don't want to add too much darkness to the design. Just add a little bit of, this is just to give a little bit of texture to my design. and I'm just going to just bend a little bit. Now remember, this piece of card is going to be a bit limp because it's got moisture in it, so it takes time to dry. Now if you want to add, I will definitely want to add some white elements to my design. You're not going to be able to do that until that ink is dry, just so that your colouring is dry. There we go. That's it. Just so we've got that added there. Let me just push that up, just so that, there we go. And then what we've got is that the design has got some definition. It's got definition in there. And then what I'm going to do is have a look, let's move this out of the way, have a look at my Stag stamp set. Let me just move that on off there. Let's bring the Stag stamp set in. Now there's plenty of sentiments on here that you can use. Wrong way around, Tracy. So there's plenty of sentiments on this stamp set that you can use. There's winter wishes, there's antlers, there's wild, there's fearless, there's stag. So whatever you want to use, you can use on there. I think I might use fearless. Now if you want to make it into more of a Christmas kind of element, then you could use the winter wishes. And why don't you opt for some blues for your stag? You know, you could put them in the blues for the stag. And the stag would look beautiful coloured in Distress Oxide in the blues. So let's just make sure that we've got that straight, which we haven't. Just remember, just with your sentiments, don't stretch them. Just let them fall onto the acrylic block. And I'm just going to add that fearless sentiment just here. And I'm just going to allow that to soak into there. And I'm not pressing on too hard. There's no need to press on too hard. There we go. There's our fearless sentiment. Place that back, and when you place this on the black card, you can see that it really starts to pop. So what we're going to do is take a little bit, let me just see if I can find the ink pad, a little bit of the red really. Going to take a little bit of the candied apple that I used in my pencil. Just take a little bit of that candied apple, just spritz that with water. Nobody needs that much ink for what I'm going to do. Just take up a little bit of that and just lightly flick some of that candied apple just on your project. There we go. Just wipe that up, place that on there. Right, I'm going to get my water brush that I use just mainly for my Inktense pencil. In fact, I don't know whether my Inktense pencil is going to be too harsh. What I'm going to do is use a bit of Hickory Smoke. So I've got some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink. I'm just going to pick that up, and then I'm just going to, which to be honest is not easy when you've got a little bit of cotton on there, but what I want to do is add a suggestion of just a little bit of shading. So I'm just going to add a suggestion of some shading just around the stag, just to give it a little bit of a shadow. It is a little bit harder when you've got that cotton on there, but I'm just going to add a little bit of shading anyway, just to give it a little bit of depth. Just water that out. If you've got too much, just take some off, just so that you can. Let's just add a little bit here. So I'm just adding a little bit of shading, just so that the stag looks a little bit more 3D. And if you've got too much ink, just spritz the kitchen roll with water, and you can just lift some of your ink if you wish. But it just gives it a little bit of shading, just so it looks a little bit more 3D for me personally. Right, then what we're going to do is just add some white splatters. I just love a few white splatters, especially on the stag's head, because it'll really show up and it just gives those white highlights. Let's move these out of the way. What I'm going to do then is just place that. Let's move that round here just so we've got some of that cotton. We're going to play. I end up spending my life messing with cotton. We're just then going to add this to a black mat. Now, if you remember, you won't be talking. You'll just be getting on with the card. No waffling. You'll just be sitting there peacefully for half an hour and you'll have your card done. Now, if you want to change this to a seasonal make, if you're getting ahead with those seasonal makes, then change that stag to sort of blue colours if you wish, and just give it a frosty feel. You can even add a little bit of snow on top of the antlers with a little bit of your texture paste. So let's add this here. There we go. Just add that to my card blank, like so. Now obviously you wait until everything dries. You don't want to make it a mess, like so. And I'm just going to get my little mouse, which I adore. So I've got my little mice, which is stamp set 811, and it's called Cute Mouse. Right. Which one? I want the one that's facing the stag. This is just our finishing touch. Take the little mouse. There we go. Make sure I use the correct ink. Still give that a really good inking, even though it's a little tiny mouse, little silhouette. Let's sit him just there. And what I'm going to do is, it's just a little stamp. It doesn't need pressure really. I'm just allowing that just to sit on there, just so that that ink absorbs into the card. There we go. There's our little mouse. And then just to finish off, we take a white gel pen, add a few white touches just to our mouse, just so that you can see that. Just so that you can see. And what I would do is, when this is dry, I'd add a little touch of white here and down here once that's dry, because it just sometimes won't take when your card's wet. You're just trying to work on soaking wet card. If you're impatient and can't wait, then just go in with your paint. But I will wait. So what I can do, you see, this is where I end up taking a little bit longer, just to show you a couple of ideas. If you can't wait for your gel pen, use the end of a paintbrush, or I've got a little ball tool, a little tiny ball tool, dip into my white paint, and then I can just add, because this is an opaque paint, it takes a little bit quicker, obviously, than the gel pen, because the gel pen is trying to work on that moisture and it won't take. It will take if you let it dry, if you're just a little bit more patient. But obviously you want to see the card finished and with the touches of white on, I'm sure. So just, there we go. And nobody on the planet needs that much white paint, just for adding a few touches of white. There we go. Let's move that out of the way. And this is our card finished. Let me show you, just so that you can see that, just so you can see the dimension. Nice simple card, nice snippet video. So I hope you enjoyed that. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.